The European Union has never been this reckless, has it? At a time when global economies are already teetering on the edge of chaos, the EU decides to take a swing at China, the world's second-largest economy, by imposing tariffs on its electric vehicles. Some might call it a bold move, but many would argue it's sheer arrogance and political miscalculation of the highest order. Are European leaders blind to the consequences? Or are they so desperate to please Washington that they're willing to jeopardize decades of trade and economic cooperation with Beijing? Let's not mince words here. This isn't about protecting European jobs or the environment. No, it's about trying to choke out a competitor that's been running circles around the West in the tech and automotive sectors, China. With its relentless pace of innovation and state-backed industries, has been beating the EU at its own game. And now Europe's response is a knee-jerk, protectionist tantrum. But here's the kicker: while Brussels pushes this narrative of leveling the playing field, it's European consumers and industries that will suffer the most. China's retaliation is inevitable, and when it comes, you can bet it will be brutal. And don't think Beijing will just sit idly by while the EU joins hands with the US in its anti-China crusade. The retaliatory measures will come, and they'll hit where it hurts the most: European exports that depend on China's massive consumer market. European leaders are walking into a minefield with their eyes wide shut, and the fallout could unravel economic stability across the continent. So, who's really to blame? The EU for making a foolish move at the worst possible time, or China for having the audacity to rise so quickly in global prominence? It's a tangled web of politics, egos, and bad decisions that will leave both sides licking their wounds. Stay with us till the end as we unravel this volatile, high-stakes showdown. Hello and welcome back to Innovative Check YouTube channel, where we delve into the innovative and transformative projects changing our world. If you're new to the channel and enjoy learning about innovation stories around the world, you've come to the right place. Please subscribe, like, and comment to help boost our videos on YouTube. The tension between the EU and China continues to escalate, driven by the recent decision of the European Union to impose tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles. This move has created a ripple effect that is likely to result in retaliatory actions from Beijing, which could target key sectors of the European economy. What lies ahead is a complex interplay of political maneuvering, economic strategy, and a balancing act between two powerful entities trying to safeguard their interests. European policymakers are increasingly concerned about how China will respond. Beijing has a history of retaliating swiftly when it feels its industries are unfairly targeted, and the E.U's recent vote on electric vehicle tariffs seems to have hit a nerve. While China has yet to announce specific retaliatory measures, the signs point to a carefully calculated response that could affect several key industries in Europe. One of the areas most vulnerable to Chinese retaliation is the pork industry. China has already launched an anti-dumping probe into EU pork imports, a move that could result in tariffs being imposed on European pork exports to China. This would have a significant impact on countries like Spain, Denmark, and the Netherlands, which are major suppliers of pork to China. If Beijing decides to escalate further, the dairy industry could also be in the crosshairs. The Netherlands, France, and Ireland, all key suppliers of dairy to China, might find themselves facing the brunt of any trade restrictions China chooses to impose. The European Union's vote on electric vehicle tariffs was not unanimous, with several member states abstaining or voting against the measure. This division within the bloc could potentially play into China's hands. Countries that oppose the tariffs, like Germany and Slovakia, may be spared from the harshest retaliatory measures, while those that voted in favor could be targeted more aggressively. This would not only divide the EU internally but also give China leverage in future negotiations. There is also the looming threat of tariffs on European car manufacturers. German automakers, in particular, are vulnerable to any such action, with companies like Volkswagen AG already expressing concern about the potential for Chinese retaliation. If Beijing were to impose tariffs on European car exports to China, it would deal a severe blow to Germany's automotive industry, which relies heavily on exports to China. Brands like Audi, Porsche, and Lamborghini, all owned by Volkswagen, could see their sales in China plummet if tariffs are introduced. Beyond the economic implications, this trade dispute highlights the broader geopolitical tension between the EU and China. The European Union is under pressure to respond to what it sees as unfair competition from Chinese electric vehicle manufacturers who benefit from substantial state subsidies. At the same time, Europe is wary of pushing too hard and risking a full-blown trade war with one of its largest trading partners. The EU is trying to walk a fine line between protecting its industries and avoiding a conflict that could have far-reaching consequences. China, for its part, has been clear in its opposition to the E.U's tariffs. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce has warned that the tariffs will undermine Chinese companies' confidence in investing in Europe and has pledged to take all necessary measures to protect the interests of Chinese firms. This is a clear signal that Beijing is prepared to respond forcefully if it feels its economic interests are being threatened. Despite the growing tension, both sides have signaled a willingness to continue negotiations. The EU and China are exploring the possibility of reaching an agreement that would involve some form of price and volume controls on Chinese electric vehicles, which could serve as an alternative to tariffs, however. The likelihood of reaching such an agreement remains uncertain. As Henry Gao, a law professor specializing in Chinese trade policies, noted, the possibility of a deal is slim. If talks fail, it could trigger a tit-for-tat retaliation that would only further damage trade relations between the two economic giants. Just a quick reminder to hit the like button below. YouTube has been restricting my videos a lot recently because of bots, so your like does help out this video massively in terms of the algorithm in YouTube. The stakes are high for both sides. For the European Union, this dispute is not just about electric vehicles, it is about setting a precedent for how it deals with unfair trade practices from China, for China. The E.U's actions represent an unwelcome challenge to its ambitions of becoming a global leader in electric vehicle production. Beijing is unlikely to back down easily, especially given the importance of the European market for Chinese car manufacturers. Adding to the complexity of the situation is the involvement of the United States. Washington has already imposed tariffs on Chinese goods and has been urging its allies, including the EU, to take a tougher stance on China's trade practices. While the EU has traditionally been more cautious in its approach, the recent electric vehicle tariffs suggest that it may be shifting closer to the U.S. position. This, in turn, could provoke an even stronger response from Beijing, which has long viewed U.S. efforts to contain its economic rise with suspicion. At the same time, European leaders are keenly aware of the risks of aligning too closely with the U.S. in its trade disputes with China. European businesses have significant interests in China, and any escalation in the trade war could have severe consequences for industries across the continent. This has led to a somewhat contradictory approach from the EU, which is trying to balance its desire to protect its industries with the need to maintain good relations with China. This balancing act was evident in the votes cast by individual EU member states on the electric vehicle tariffs. Countries like Germany, which has deep economic ties with China, voted against the tariffs, while others, like France, which has been more vocal in its criticism of Chinese trade practices, supported the measure. The result is a divided EU, with member states pursuing different strategies based on their national interests. This division only serves to weaken the E.U's bargaining position in its negotiations with China and could ultimately make it more vulnerable to Chinese retaliation. If you are enjoying this video so far, please don't forget to subscribe, share the video and comment. As the situation unfolds, one thing is clear: the trade dispute between the EU and China is far from over. Both sides have a lot to lose, and neither seems willing to back down. For European policymakers, the challenge will be to find a way to protect their industries without sparking a trade war that could have devastating consequences for the global economy. If the negotiations between the EU and China fail, the next phase of the dispute could see a significant escalation in retaliatory measures. Beijing has a wide range of options at its disposal, from targeting specific industries to imposing tariffs on a broader range of European goods. Whatever course of action China chooses, it will likely be carefully calibrated to inflict maximum economic pain on the countries that supported the electric vehicle tariffs, while minimizing the impact on those that oppose them. For European leaders, the challenge is to remain united in the face of Chinese pressure. The division within the EU over the electric vehicle tariffs has already weakened the bloc's position, and further splits could leave it even more vulnerable to Chinese retaliation. At the same time, Europe cannot afford to be seen as backing down in the face of Chinese pressure, especially as it seeks to assert its role as a global economic power. As the situation continues to evolve, all eyes will be on the next round of negotiations between the EU and China. While both sides have expressed a willingness to continue talking, the gap between their positions remains wide, and the prospects for a resolution appear slim. If no agreement is reached, the EU could find itself drawn into a trade war with China, with significant consequences for both sides. The outcome of this dispute will not only shape the future of trade relations between the EU and China, but could also have broader implications for the global economy. With tensions already high between China and the US, any further escalation in the EU-China trade dispute could lead to a realignment of global trade alliances and further strain an already fragile global economy. Thank you for your attention. And I welcome your thoughts and questions on this complex and vital subject. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to get exclusive videos about how phenomenally China is developing and growing its influence. Your subscriptions and likes motivate us to generate more content, so please keep supporting us. Check out this video showing on your screen right now, and I will see you on the other side.